Shadowlands started, really, as the most ambitious WoW expansion, at least from a lore perspective. We are going into the secrets of the core of the universe. First ones, eternal ones, titans, life death cycles, and all sorts of cosmological shenanigans. However, thus far, we know like 10% more than we did at expansion release, and the story didn't deliver in the slightest. Looking at the patch timeline, BlizzCon, and the next expansion, it really does seem like we'll be getting only 2 patches this expansion and maybe a third minor one. Is this really going to be the case? First, I was a bit skeptical about this wallet, but Ridge, the sponsor of this video, sent it to me about a year and a half ago, and really, I've not used any other wallet since then. It is actually great. You can put 12 cards inside, and you can put cash here as well, and there are over 30 colors and styles you can choose from. Check out my link in the description to get a 10% discount with code DORON and get your own Ridge wallet. As I mentioned, Shadowlands really is the most ambitious expansion thus far and probably the worst one on delivery, kinda matching Warlords of Draenor at this current point. Gameplay wise, nothing really crazy was added in Shadowlands outside of maybe Torghast, which is completely new. However, on the lore side, this was a revolution to say the least that changed the game drastically. They pretty much retconned half the stuff that was built for over 2 decades, expanded on many things. We have learned that the Lich King was just a pawn of the Jailer, that Kill Jaden and Sargeras were manipulated by the Dreadlords and Atrius. Then we learned that all of them were pawns of the first ones, that at some point in time ordered the entire universe and created these cycles, these never-ending loops. Seeing that Sylvanas has been on her plan since Cataclysm, Shadowlands is supposed to be the culmination of all the expansions thus far. Really, looking at it from a lore perspective, Shadowlands should realistically be the most important expansion ever. Warlords of Draenor and Legion was just a Burning Legion, but guess what? The Legion was just manipulated by the Jailer. Then BFA was really just setting the ground for Shadowlands, so the culmination should be happening right now that was built for all these decades. We're learning about this new concept, the first ones, and the Jailer is apparently set on completely reordering the universe. Now, this here is the tragedy. Sure, I can definitely agree that the story is kinda over the top, but in my opinion, that is okay. What is not okay though is that when you do something this crazy, you really need to deliver on it to the absolute max. When you decide to create a brand new character that will change everything, that is more important than anyone else, and when we're for the first time learning about the architects of the entire universe, you really need to provide the content to match that ambition. What Blizzard has done is pretty much the complete opposite, and this is the worst drought in the content history of the entire game. Now, I'm not saying there weren't other droughts in the past throughout the other expansions, but it was completely different. We weren't just left with complete cliffhangers and just countless speculations in the past. Sure, we waited for content, but at least we knew what was up to some extent. However, in the case of Shadowlands, it is literally ridiculous. Soon, it will be exactly 1 year since the expansion was released, and we know like 10% more about everything than we did at release, and maybe even before release. Sure, we learned about the first ones, Elude being a live titan, Sylvanas abandoning the Jailer, but thus far, there isn't a single storyline that is actually concrete and explained fully. Everything is just completely vague, open to counter speculations, and can really just go either way. First ones, sure, new concept, they're the creators of the universe, but are they really? Are they still around? Why did they order the universe? Are they good? Are they bad? Why did they create these cycles? We literally know nothing about this. Elune and the Winter Queen are sisters, and she's a life titan, but what are life titans? How do they split? How do they work? What is going on? Tyrande is supposed to forgive. She abandoned the Night Warrior. Why? How did Elune influence the burning of Teldrassil? Then, on the other hand, you have the Sepulchre and Azeroth. Sure, the two could be related, but are they related? The Jailer wants to undo the universe, but really, what does undo mean? What is this portal he's going through? Where is he going? What does he want? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Blizzard should just tell everything to us explicitly. Some mystery is definitely okay, but if you're going to go the cliffhanger route and do all this mystery stuff, you really need to release the actual content. You can't just leave us with a cliffhanger for half a year, then give us a tiny hint and then leave us to hang for another half a year. Really, that is an excellent way for people to just stop caring about the story, to just say screw it, and who even really cares who the jailer guy is and what does he want? Let's just get this over with. I'm not going to deny it, I did say that Shadowlands had some of the best lore at the start of the expansion, and I still stand behind that, but my biggest concern really came through, and that is that they utterly failed on the delivery, like beyond failed. I'm not saying there still isn't a chance the lore can be salvaged, but things are really not looking all that great. Let's just look at the facts that we have. Shadowlands released in November, and 9.1 came out nearly in July, which was almost an 8-month wait. Now, what was ridiculous is the content that we received in the patch in no way justified this long of a wait. Gameplay aside, the lore we received in this patch is just so minuscule. The only big thing that happened was Sylvanas' betrayal, which we all really expected, and nothing happened since we don't know what she will say. Will she be redeemed? Will she not be redeemed? Other than that, the story literally moved a single inch. Now, 9.1.5 is releasing soon, which almost entirely confirms that we will not be seeing 9.2 this year in any way, which means that there is yet another 6 months wait minimum to learn what he must not reach D. D what? Now, unfortunate news we received recently is that the Sylvanas novel was moved significantly. First it was moved from November to February, and now it was moved to March just a few days ago. This could be really grim for 9.2. Now, I'm not discounting shipping, printing problems and all that stuff, but it does seem to be related to the storyline itself. They are working on a Sylvanas novel, and Sylvanas is now the character that left us hanging. It is all obviously connected, and that's something in that novel will reveal some crucial information for the story progression, and because of that, the book has to be in good timing with the patch. This might mean that 9.2 could be released as far as March, which is just terrible news. Really, are we going to be left for over 8 months again to learn what Sylvanas was supposed to say in that one single sentence? Now, to not really clickbait you guys, when I said 9.2 is the final patch, really things unfortunately seem to be hinting at this. BlizzCon is supposed to be early next year, probably February or March, and by the timing, since forever they're supposed to announce the next expansion. If they announce the next expansion, that means in 9.2 the story should be wrapping up. If you're doing like a light or a void invasion, we already need to be at the conclusion of the Shadowlands for the story to make sense. It is possible that 9.3 could happen in between Shadowlands and the next expansion, but it can be the ultimate big reveal that Shadowlands really deserved. On the other hand, with the current world situation and the fact that they moved BlizzCon once already, a good and a bad thing could happen. They might delay the next expansion for 1 more year, therefore changing the usual schedule, but on the good side, Shadowlands could have at least 4 patches that are going to untangle this mystery of a storyline. So it is possible that on BlizzCon they don't announce the next expansion, but they announce 9.3, so maybe 9.2 storyline could conclude by BlizzCon. Now, I am keeping my hopes up for this, and I really believe this could be the only way to salvage this expansion. I know many of you are thinking, who even cares about all this stuff, this jailer guy? Let's just wrap up Shadowlands and move forward. But really, from a lore perspective, I hope they don't cram another major villain into a single patch. They did this with Legion and Argus, where we defeated Sargeras in a matter of months. They did this with N'Zoth in an even worse way. Now, if they created this entire cosmological storyline with a brand new villain that they just introduced, only to wrap up his entire story and all this first one stop into 2 patches, that really would just be terrible. Thank you for watching. Check out this About to Happening by clicking on the screen, and also check out the Notes Academy for videos on real world history. See you next time.